Hello, honeys, and welcome back. In this brand new edition of the Beesness, we will be talking about April 21st through the 27th, the events of the art world therein. I don't know about for the rest of you all, but summer has officially hit Phoenix. It has been in the 80s at least for the last week or so, and looks like it's going to stay that way from here on out. Wherever you are, hope your transition to summer has been a little less abrupt and a little less intense. In any case, let's go ahead and get started with our headlines this week. As always, if you want to, you can check out our sources via the link in our episode description. First, something a little outside of our usual wheelhouse, but very important. A change in Oscar animation rules will now permit easier crossover qualification for international films. IndieWire says, quote, as part of the 2025 Oscar rule changes for the 97th Academy Awards to be held on March 2nd, 2025, animated movies can be simultaneously submitted for Best International Feature and Best Animated Feature, end quote. The headline caught my eye because this change is centered on equity. The new difference in the rules removes the requirement of having U.S. theatrical distribution in order to simplify the qualifying method for these films. Specifically, the change is to help animated international films that may not have access to U.S. distribution have an equal shot at getting the recognition they deserve. Academy sources say that animated films now only must meet the Academy's definition of animation. This is also something of a follow-up to put this category's rules in alignment with other ones, specifically the documentary/animated documentary rules, which were changed as early as 2021. Overall, though, we love to see this intentional leveling of the playing field. We also heard that oil paintings rescued from the Notre Dame Cathedral fire a couple years back have gone on display. First of all, throwback to when we thought in 2019 that the Notre Dame fire was the worst it was gonna get. Oh boy. The artworks in question are known as the Maze, at least 52 of the 76 total. 13 of which belonged to the Notre Dame and were hung in side chapels at the time of the blaze. Others, of course, were in private collections, other churches, etc. According to the Smithsonian Magazine reporting on this opening, each painting was originally made for and a winner of a 17th century competition organized by Paris's Goldsmiths Guild. The competition itself was an attempt post-French Wars of Religion to elevate Catholicism. So, after the selection by the Guild, the winning work would be on display in front of the Virgin Mary outside of the Notre Dame, then donated to the cathedral for permanent display after a few days. Though the Notre Dame's 13 were a little more damp than the conservators would have liked when they were rescued, they were ultimately okay, so it's exciting that they're able to go on exhibition at this point at Mobilier National in Paris. The Smithsonian reports that this exhibition will examine the efforts to restore and rethink Notre Dame in the 5 years since that fire. We also received word that Ray Petlan, a pioneering Chicano artist, died at 77 last week. Born in 1946 to Mexican immigrant parents, he trained at the Art Institute of Chicago and at the Academy of San Marcos in Mexico, and taught at UC Berkeley for some time. He was considered by his peers to be a pioneer, a community advocate, and a strong representative of his heritage through his murals. His former colleagues and collaborators described him as a man of conviction in the Block Club Chicago article, which also noted the impact of his iconic mural on the former Casa Atzlan Community Center in Pilsen, itself forming a community rallying point for many years. The art world got a bit of a shock last week when a Klimt portrait presumed missing for nearly a century sold for $32 million. Not having been seen for nearly that 100 years, it was considered so prior to this sale. The whole time, it was privately owned. Legally, though, no Nazi provenances as far as anyone can tell. The artwork itself is titled Portrait of Fräulein Leiser and is thought to be one of the Austrian painter's final works. The Austrian auction house said in the press, specifically Art News, quote, "The rediscovery of this portrait, one of the most beautiful of Klimt's last creative period, is a sensation," end quote. Given all the hubbub over this work, though, the results of the sale were surprising themselves. It ended up selling at the lower end of its estimated 30 to 50 million euro or 32 to 53.4 million US dollar value. This is even more striking of a end figure considering that the bids started at 28 million euros. So only 2 million more than its asking price, really. I bet this was even more surprising for the unnamed auction house, considering that another Klimt work, Dame mit Facher, or Lady with a Fan, sold in London last year for 85.3 million euros, or 108.4 million US dollars, which was the most expensive sale ever at European auctions. Nobody quite knows why this sale was not as lucrative as last year's. Whether it indicates changes in the art sales market or something about the auction itself. In any case, the mystery is intriguing and caught mine and many others' attentions. In other auction and sales news, the fashion icon Vivienne Westwood's personal wardrobe is heading to auction soon. A bit of background on the designer: she was born in England in 1941 and built up her brand from a small fashion boutique shop into a key punk design empire of the 20th century. Christie's London will host the live and online auction in June. According to Art News, quote, "The 200 lots of accessories, jewelry, and outfits from Westwood's wardrobe have been selected for auction by Westwood's third husband and the creative director of her brand, Andreas Kronthaler, to whom she was married for 29 years, end quote. The sale and its surrounding events are intended to celebrate the trailblazer and her vision, quote, "with a selection of looks that mark significant moments not only in her career, but also in her personal life," as Christie's director of private and iconic collections says. The profits raised from these sales will go to several charitable causes, including Amnesty International, as well as the Vivienne Foundation, founded by Westwood in 2019 to confront climate change and protest capitalism. Really great sale for really great causes. We love to see it. Excellent job, Vivienne Westwood's estate managers. And finally, swinging it over to our white cubes, the institutional/museum news of the week. First, the Getty Museum has agreed to return an ancient life-size bronze head to Turkey. The decision was announced April 24th after recent confirmation from the Manhattan DA's office that the object had been, quote, "illegally excavated" and taken by dealer Nicholas Koudalakis. Artforum, reporting on the situation, notes that he was, quote, "later discovered to have sold to the Getty other artifacts that had been looted," end quote. The sculpture, dated to between 100 BCE and 100 CE, is off view for now, but its exact return date is TBD. Egypt additionally recovered the head of a 3,400-year-old Ramses II statue from Switzerland last week. Though procedures began via the Egyptian embassy in Switzerland in July of 2023, this recovery was announced Monday by the Ministry of Tourism and Antiques. The head had been smuggled into Switzerland over 30 years ago. Its recovery was the result of a collaborative effort between Egyptian and Swiss authorities. In a bit of a twist, a non-restitution situation, Italy officially banned loans to the Minneapolis Institute of Art last week due to a long-running dispute over an ancient statue. The legal battle between the two entities began in March of 2022 when an Italian court ruled that the MIA, quote, was irregularly in possession of the Stabai Doriforo, a Roman-era copy of the Doriforos of Polykeitos, an ancient Greek sculpture, end quote, says KARE News out of Minneapolis. According to Italian prosecutors, it was looted in the 1970s from an archaeological site at an ancient city very nearby Pompeii. In February of 2022, they had issued an international warrant for the work's impounding and returning, so this is, in a way, the logical next step in this process. The museum responses, however, have indicated they think the opposite. They say, quote, since its purchase in 1986, the work has been publicly displayed and extensively published. While it takes issue with recent press reports regarding the Doriforos, MIA believes that the media is not an appropriate forum to address unproven allegations, end quote. They also say they always act ethically and proactively in regards to collections while raising the point that this sort of embargo is an abnormal practice and procedure. They are right, at least on that last point. I personally don't know of any other specific ban between a country and an institution outside of this one. We also saw some buzz regarding France in the headlines last week. First, that the Louvre and other major Paris museums are making big plans to capitalize on the 2024 Olympics. In the Louvre's Tuesday image release, they introduced several celebrity athletes and influencers who will be part of the launch of the cultural festivities around the Paris Olympic and Paralympic Games. These promotional images also strongly suggested lots of unusual partnerships and collaborations between such museums. Says the French newspaper Le Monde, the city and institutions have high hopes that the flood of people from the Games will reinvigorate the tourism sector as well as the cultural one, as the two are so often connected and have been struggling since the COVID-19 pandemic with certain weaknesses. All in all, 2024 is set to be a big year for them, and this could be part of an integral launch pad for the museums. Le Monde reports that the Olympic and Paralympic Games are expected to bring in 15 million visitors themselves. But they note that the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral, as well as the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of D-Day, are likely to cause those numbers to swell dramatically. Whatever their plans are, I'm personally very excited to find out. And one last bit of France news before we go, because it is about the most famous painting in the world. The Louvre has announced that it will give the so-called disappointing Mona Lisa a brand new space to improve visitor experiences. Attracting 10 million visitors per year, it is the most famous and the most visited work of art, yet visitors typically only get 50 seconds of viewing time in front of barriers as well as glass to see it. For this reason, it's also often considered the world's most disappointing masterpiece. The new proposition suggests that it get its own dedicated space, a separate viewing room for better reception as well as visibility in order to fix the problem of both people and cameras blocking much of the view except from the very front of the crowd. This is also going to be a good thing for the much overlooked paintings surrounding it, which might finally get a bit of attention. Making such a thing possible would be a big undertaking, but the museum still has strong hopes. It would likely require a separate entrance addition to the Louvre, as well as the building of at least 2 new rooms, likely underneath the museum courtyard. Euronews estimates these costs to be about 500 million euros, saying, quote, The Ministry of Culture is reportedly in favor of the new Grand Louvre project, but Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire will have to be convinced. Le Maire has already said he hopes to claw back 25 billion euros in savings for the 2025 budget and has urged the cultural sector to do its fair share, end quote. Whether or not the Mona Lisa actually gets new digs, it's fun to see these sorts of debates play out between public desire and finance in the arts. All right, honeys, let's leave it there. That's all I got for you. I will talk to you again Thursday with the second installment in our Art That Pisses People Off series. I'll talk to you soon, and in the meantime, take care, hydrate or dihydrate, and stay cool. This podcast was created, produced, written, hosted, edited, and fact-checked by master's graduate Celia Bugno. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all of your favorite streaming platforms as well as your social medias.